Hi friends, today we're going to talk about solving by factoring. Now this is specifically going to be used with a quadratic equation. You will see applications of this later on with polynomial equations, but I'm going to be talking about quadratic equations today. All right, so we have a different video that talks about factoring. Actually, I think there's about 3 of them. So if you are not comfortable with factoring, you're going to want to go watch those first and then come back here, because as I work through these, I'm going to assume you're good with factoring. So in these, your instructions will say solve, and you will see an equal sign indicating that the answer to your problem will say x equals something. Of course, if your variable is not x, it's going to say whatever your variable is equals something. So this one we have solve as our instructions, and the equation we're given is x squared minus 5x plus 6 equals 0. Now I want to point out a few things that are really important. We first have to make sure that we have a 0 on one side of the equation. That's crucial. If it's any other number, this doesn't work. So here it's set up where it's equal to 0, but in my other examples, it won't start out equal to 0. We'll have to make that happen. Now, why is that important? So I have a rule that tells me if two numbers, and I'm going to call them A and B, are multiplied together to make 0, then either the first number, which I'm calling A, equals 0, or B, the second number, is equal to 0. Those are the only two options. Now 0 is special. That gives us that conclusion. If I had a 4 over here, I can't say if two numbers multiply together make 4, then the first has to be this and the second has to be that. That's just not true. So 0 is special, and that is why we have to get this quadratic equal to 0 in order to solve it. All right. Now, how do I know that I'm going to solve this by factoring? The main answer is I'm going to look at it and I know that I can factor it. That might seem like not a very good answer, and I understand that. But solving by factoring is always the first thing we want to try because it's the most straightforward. So when I look at this, x squared minus 5x plus 6, I know that if I multiply together negative 2 and negative 3, I get positive 6. And if I add together negative 2 and negative 3, I get negative 5. So I can factor this. I'm going to factor it as x minus 2 times x minus 3, and it is still equal to 0. All I did was factor that left-hand side, so I rewrote it as multiplication so that I can use this rule right here to solve it. All right, so if x minus 2 times x minus 3 is equal to 0, the only way that can happen is if x minus 2 equals 0 or x minus 3 is equal to 0. Those are the only two options. Now, you won't always see this or written between them. I will at the beginning just because I want to emphasize the fact that either of those is a possible solution. But it's okay if you don't include that. All right, our final step is going to be to solve each of these. If x minus 2 equals 0, we can add 2 to both sides, and I get x is equal to 2. If x minus 3 is equal to 0, then I can add 3 to both sides, and I get x is equal to 3. So my solution is x equal 2 or x equal 3. Okay? Obviously, it doesn't have to be both at the same time because that's not possible. Either of those is a solution. All right, let's look at another one. And again, my instructions are going to say solve. So this one is 2x squared is equal to 9x minus 4. Okay. It is a quadratic. It has an equal sign. So the first thing we want to try is solving it by factoring. Now, I'm going to start moving terms over to the left-hand side. So I will subtract 9x from both sides. So I'd have 2x squared minus 9x equals negative 4. I want to caution you, don't stop at this point. We have to get the whole quadratic equal to 0. So I'm going to add 4 to both sides. So 2x squared minus 9x plus 4 is equal to 0. Now we can solve it by factoring. All right, so I need to factor 2x squared minus 9x plus 4. That's going to factor. We have a 2x and an x on the front. On the back, this will be a minus 1 and a minus 4. Okay. And we can set each of those equal to 0. So 2x minus 1 equals 0, or x minus 4 equals 0. Finally, let's just solve it for x. So I'll add 1 to both sides here. 2x is equal to 1, and x is equal to 1/2. And then I'll go over to the other one. X minus 4 equals 0. We'll add 4 to both sides. So x is equal to 4. So I have two solutions, x equal 1/2 or x equal 4. All right, let's look at one more. So I have 4x squared plus 4x is equal to 3. Now, we want to try solving it by factoring. Notice I set this up to be really tempting. It's really tempting to factor that left-hand side. They both have a 4 and an x. I get that. It won't help us, though. So we need to move the 3 over to the left-hand side. So I'm going to rewrite this as 4x squared plus 4x minus 3 is equal to 0. Now we're going to factor it. All right, so to make 4x squared, these front pieces of the binomials, I'm going to set those up as 2x and 2x. And then factors of negative 3, so that would be 1 and 3, and I need to figure out which one is negative. So I'm going to make it plus 3 and minus 1. If we were to FOIL that out, you would see that that is the correct factored form there. Again, if that factoring is challenging, I want to encourage you to go back to my other factoring videos. All right, so I have 2x plus 3 times 2x minus 1 equals 0. So we'll set each piece equal to 0 on its own. So 2x plus 3 equals 0, or 2x minus 1 equals 0. For 2x plus 3 equals 0, I'll subtract 3 from both sides and divide by 2 to get x equals negative 3/2. For 2x minus 1 equals 0, I'll add 1 and divide by 2 on both sides to get x equal 1/2. So we have two solutions to our equation. X equals negative 3/2 or x equals 1/2. Notice in every situation we have ended with x equals something. And because we have a quadratic with a degree of 2, that's going to give us two answers. So two solutions for x in each case. My next video will talk about square root property, and then the following one about quadratic formula, which are other methods that we can use to solve a quadratic equation. Keep in mind though, factoring is always going to be your first one to use because it's the most straightforward.